Um, this isn't the video that I thought we were gonna do this week. Probably not the video you expected me to do this week. But I think that when you talk about your mental health on the internet, it's important to be honest, and you also kind of have a responsibility to talk about the parts that aren't pretty. Talk about the parts where you mess up. So, as you might have noticed in the title of the video, I messed up. And I messed up because for all that I've been talking about, these routines that I've set in place and how much I'm taking care of myself, I dropped the ball. Several of them, actually. And I have returned to some of my old habits. You see, like I said, I took spring break off so that I could rest and not go into hypomanic overdrive. And I went out of my way to really take care of myself in that sense last week. But I kind of overcorrected. And I kept pushing stuff to the side, no, I'm not working on spring break. But then I overloaded myself with things to do towards the end of spring break, towards the start of this, right? So what that means is that my to-do list for Sunday and yesterday and today was just super wild. And I didn't really have a plan to complete all of that. So on Sunday, I decided that I was just gonna stay up until things get done. Now, I've done that before with varying degrees of success. Many of you know that I joke about sometimes sleeping, right? Sleep. I love sleep. I just don't get enough of it. And I know that about myself. So I decided I'm going to stay up until I get everything I'm going to do done. And I didn't get everything that I wanted to do. And so yesterday, while already sleep deprived, I then just worked from 9:30 to 3 with nothing but bathroom breaks, just nonstop. And people kept asking me for things, and I kept saying yes. Yeah, I have time for a phone call. Yeah, I will do that. No, I'll do that. Don't worry about it. I've got it. And in the end, I had it. Sure, I did it. But at what cost? Now, obviously, I'm at fault here because I didn't set boundaries with people. People were polite. They did the right things about asking if I had time. I didn't, though. I kept telling them that I did. And I realized that I needed to deal with the reasons, because we do things for reasons, right? We don't just randomly do things. So because I messed up, we're going to talk about what happens when you mess up, because you can't just sit here and feel sorry for yourself and talk about how much you messed up. You have to go somewhere. So as you might have guessed, we are going to talk about three steps to take when you have messed up and you have to correct course. Step 1, which is often the hardest one for me, be honest, but not mean. Like I said, I messed up, but that's as far as I'm going to let it get. Because I know that spending time feeling sorry for myself or being mean to myself about what I did isn't helpful. I know that I should have set better priorities. I know I should have been nicer to myself and honest with other people and myself about what I could and couldn't do. And I didn't do that. But it doesn't serve any purpose to spend time dwelling on that. And I have one very important rule about this. If I wouldn't tell a crying student in front of me something, I don't get to say it to myself. That is how I have stopped my inner mean girl from saying awful things when I make mistakes, which we all do. So instead of feeling sorry for myself, I'm going to move on to step 2, which is find the root cause. Now, we could go on this epic quest to talk about going on a root cause analysis and creating a matrix and doing the fishbone. I'll leave details below about all of those, which I've done in various committees I've been a part of. But I actually keep it simple by asking the 5 whys. And really, I just ask myself why 5 times, like I do with many of my students, until I figure out why I did something. So let's start with the title of the video. I messed up. Why? Well, I overextended myself. I did too much. Did the most, probably. Why? I didn't set good boundaries. Why? I felt guilty, I think, because I took last week off and the world's kind of on fire. But I took last week off and I did stuff like sleep in when my roommate was working. And that felt weird. It was hard to do. Why? I think I'm just used to working all the time. So it feels weird to not be working. But also, I think I just feel guilty about like doing that kind of stuff for myself. And we're at 4, so here's the 5th one. Why? I think this just goes back to this whole thing where like I've been feeling guilty about how other people are having a harder time working from home and dealing with stuff right now than I am. And I think that maybe somewhere I might have actually kind of sabotaged myself here because I felt bad about doing well, and maybe if I suddenly wasn't doing so well, then I wouldn't have to feel bad about not struggling, because then I would be struggling. Okay, well, I'm definitely gonna write that down and talk to my therapist about it on Friday. I might just send her this video and tell her that we'll follow up. But now that we've got some root causes, which are interesting, I can look at step 3, which is to course correct. And the only way that this works is if you take really concrete or specific steps. You can't just say, well, then I'm just not going to sabotage myself, because that's not how anything works. You need to be specific. So I'm going to think about some of the things that I've said I know I didn't do right. One of them was not setting appropriate boundaries. And I know I didn't do it with other people, but I also didn't do it with myself. So I tried to set some more boundaries for myself, and I'm going to link it below, but I created a sheet for myself where I'm going to, as I said, I've been taking my daily priority for work and one for personal stuff. I'm also going to try to break down what tasks from my like massive task list I'm doing at any given time, because I know that my big work priority usually has like smaller steps. Same thing with my personal. And I talked about like chunking my work into smaller parts. Then I want to actually look at what those parts look like throughout the day, so that I don't do something like book myself for meetings back to back to back, 9:30 to 3, and not actually give myself a break. And I'm going to schedule a lunch break in there somewhere. 2, set better boundaries with other people. I am going to offer resources first before offering to take care of it myself. And I am also going to be upfront about whether I have enough bandwidth to actually do something. So if I'm really swamped right now, but I could have time later in the day, or hey, could we talk about this tomorrow? Or could you actually check in with my co-lead? Or, like with somebody else who might be able to support them. Or can I call you back and think about this for a little bit? Because I know that people, like, everybody's struggling and we all have to support each other, and I love supporting my team, but I can't support them if I'm not in a good place. And I definitely haven't been the best team lead that I could be in the last 2 days, because I haven't been the best version of myself that I could be. And I think as my sort of final concrete step, I am going to commit to taking some time at the beginning of the day to work on that template that I'm going to link. And at the end of the day, to look at it, reflect on it, and maybe come up with some action steps for the next day, so that I can actually close off my work day, because I'm noticing that I'm becoming kind of obsessed with like continuing to work and finishing things. And I have to understand that if I didn't manage my time well in the day, or I took on too much and I didn't finish, then I didn't finish. And that doesn't mean that I have to work 13 hours until it's done, because it can wait. Most things in life can. So that's it. Those are my 3 steps for getting back up after a setback. And I hope that you find this helpful. If you do, hit like, maybe subscribe, and hopefully should be back sometime next week with the beginning of the big remodel tour. Bye.